Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Knitting with Sam Barsky. I'm Sam Barsky, and I'm going to talk about what I'm working on today because this week is, as all of you know, the Olympics. So, in honor of that, what I'm wearing today is representing the Olympics in a way you won't imagine. So, look what I'm wearing now. This is my human anatomy sweater. Most notably, it's a skeleton. So hi everyone who are just joining me. So most notably, it has a skeleton, and the reason why I'm wearing it, there is a Winter Olympic sport called skeleton. It's a variation of the sport luge, and I'm one of the reasons why I'm wearing this one in particular is I'm also participating in a form of the Olympics myself. Not the Olympics, but there is a competition going on in town where I live called the Ravelenics, which is essentially a knitting Olympics. And for that, I entered a contest that was named Sweater Skeleton. Every contest is named after a various sport in the Olympics, and the one that I entered into is called Sweater Skeleton. And the object, the one that I'm following, I'm going to knit a sweater in 2 weeks, and this is how much progress I've made. So what you see here is like about half of a side. This is going to be the back, and the theme of this one is sweets, like cakes and pastries and all kinds of things like that. All kinds of things you would find in a bakery. So I started off with cupcakes at the bottom, and each cupcake here has, as you see, the wrapper around it. It has the icing, it has a candle, and the candle has a flame. And just like on my Hanukkah sweaters, which I've talked about before, the flame glows in the dark. And above here, I did a row of petit fours. As you see, they're in all different colors here. So, the next step, I'm going to put some cookies on here. And this is the yarn I am using for the cookies. And yes, I'm talking about the edible kind, not the cookies that you use on the internet, but the edible kind. I'm sure this is making you hungry, just talking about it. So I'm going to get started with my first row of the day. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit 11 stitches here in this red that I'm using for the background. This is the background color. It's red, and as you see, I have 3 skeins of it available. So I've done the math already. So I got 2. Well, 1 more stitch. And then I'm going to take this. This is the brown yarn. I'm using this brown. It's different shades of brown, so it'll look like a cookie. Good enough. I'm going to insert the needle into the red yarn, and I'm going to take the brown yarn here, drape it over, and then this will finish it off. And then I'm going to knit 3 stitches in that. And here I have to split the yarn. So this is the yarn I'm using for here as the feeder. I'm going to let this drop down, and then I'm going to take another skein of red yarn. And then I'm going to take the yarn just as I did before. I'm going to insert it into the needle, let it drop down, And then I have to knit 8 stitches with it. So I'm going to take the feeder from here. It goes underneath the brown, and then the end here goes on top of the red and the brown, and then I knit 7 more stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now I can get up to the point where I can do the second cookie. But since I only have 2 skeins of this brown and I want to put 4 cookies on here, what I'm going to do is divide it up. So I'm going to need 26 stitches for each cookie. And what I'm doing, I'm using size 11 needles, as you see here. And the reason why I'm doing that is so I can do this fast. I want to be able to get it done in 2 weeks. So it's 60 stitches across, 100 rows from top to bottom. I've made quite a lot of quickies like that. So, not cookies, quickies I call them, like the word quick. Just so you understand. So, I'm going to need enough for 26 stitches. And since I almost need 2 inches for each stitch of this, I'm going to have to take like 5 needle lengths of this. And that's probably more than enough, but it's better to take more than less. So I made like a separate isolated strand of that. And then I'm going to take this again and do 3 more stitches. Once again, drape it over, complete the stitch, take not the tail, but the feeder part, run it under the red, and then this goes on top of here. I'm showing you that multiple times because that's an important skill to know when knitting anything, but especially when doing color work like this. And do 2 more stitches, because it's going to start with 3 stitches across, and then the subsequent rows will have 5, and then the last one will have 3, so they'll have more of a round look that way. And then I'm going to split this red. So this red here, which I'm using to create these sections also, what I'm going to need in it is like 4 needle lengths of it. 40 stitches, so that I'm going to take 8 needle lengths to be sure. 40 stitches, so that's 8 needle lengths. And that's probably, as I said, more than enough, but it's better to have too much than too little, especially when you have an abundance of the yarn like I do now. So, the next one is, so I'm continuing to get people commenting on the sweater I am wearing, which I've explained already, but for all of those who just joined you, it's my anatomy sweater, and I'm wearing it because of the skeleton. But the reason why I made it, this was like many years ago, is because when I was in college, I took anatomy courses, and I never finished my nursing degree. I've told that to many other people. I went into nursing school only to drop out and end up getting into knitting. I have one more stitch. So I'm going to do this with the brown again. Here's the feeder brown. Take 5 lengths of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 5 needle lengths. That should be enough. Cut it loose. And then I have to do 3 more stitches in it. So I never finished nursing school, but in memory of those days in which I was in nursing school, I made this sweater featuring the human anatomy. So it has a skeleton, it has a whole bunch of different organs on it. It has the heart, the liver, the intestines, the kidneys, and a few more. I Also coming up on Wednesday, everyone knows what holiday that is. That's Valentine's Day coming up on Wednesday. So here's 8 needle lengths of this. Cut it loose here. And then I'm going to start another section. So I very often wear this sweater on Valentine's Day or to events that are around Valentine's Day that are love themed. And even though it doesn't have a heart, like the heart that we associate with a symbol of love, doesn't have that kind of heart on it. It does have a heart. And it also is the color of those hearts. It's like a reddish pink color with the dark red here. So because of that, I very often do wear it on Valentine's Day. So here's the final cookie that I'm going to do. And since I have another small skein of this brown yarn here, I'm just going to use that one. I'm not going to worry about cutting anything right now. I just have to do 3 stitches of it here, like I did all the way across in these other cookies. So I have a total of 4 cookies here. 3 cupcakes, 5 petit fours, and 4 cookies. And then I have another one of these that I can use. So I'm just going, so that one will be, I'll use it for the end over here, so I don't have to do any more cutting. So I'm just going under the brown, take the tail and go over like that. The tail is always at least 5 to 6 inches. And in this case, I don't think I have, I can just cross over to save me another nitpick. Just take the tail, cross over here each time. And then I can just cut it without having to nitpick it when I do the final touches to finish it up. This will save me a step here. There are only 13 stitches here, so that'll probably be enough. So I can just let this go to the end and cut it loose then. I'm not going to do it now. I don't usually do it at least till I finish the side, maybe the whole sweater preferably, in case I want to go back. So I'm not going to do it now. So what I have here are sections with 3 browns across. I'm going to make them wider in the next row. They're going to go up to 5 browns. So I'm going to next do the next row. So this is a purl row, so you can see what's going on here. You'll get to see frontwards, and you'll get to see the design on it. So I'm going to stop 1 stitch short of the brown for the cookie here. And then I'm going to purl 5 stitches. So 1, 2, 3. Here I'm going to take the tail. This is the lock-in procedure. Take the tail, cross it over the feeder, and then do the 4th stitch. And then I'm going to do the 5th stitch in brown too. So I'm going to take the red from here, cross it over the brown, and here we go now. We have the width of it, so I'm going to do red up to the next cookie on here. And as you see, this is a variegated brown yarn, so there'll be different shades of brown, which is exactly what I want for this, to look like real-life cookies. So I'm going to cross the tail over, this is the red tail, cross it over the brown and purl a stitch in brown. And then the next 2 stitches will also be in brown, very natural. And then here's the stitch. Once again, I have to lock it in. And then finally, here's the next red, widening this one. So each cookie is supposed to be 5 stitches wide. These are supposed to look like either chocolate or chocolate chip cookies, and being that they're different shades of brown, it'll actually work out. They'll be random, which is exactly what I want. Same thing here, same techniques here. Here's the tail once again, crossing it over. And here's the feeder red, cross it over that. So now there's only 6 stitches between each of the cookies, and it'll be like that for the next few rows, 3 more rows after this, and then I'll do 1 more row with just 3 across. So finally, here's the final cookie here, the brown. And this is a lighter brown here, so so here we made, this is more like a caramel color, perfect. Like the one of the early ones was dark like chocolate. This is light like caramel, and that's exactly what I wanted. So now it's just red to the end of the row. So after this, I have 3 more rows. I don't have to do any locking in or anything. I just have to cross it every time I get to a color change. So that one worked out very well. So here I can just explain crossing by itself more simply. So I've been getting a lot of knitting done as I watch the Olympics also. Last night I watched the Olympics from home. In the evening I got to see some skating, some skiing, some snowboarding, all my favorite sports, a little of each. So here I'm crossing. The brown just goes under the red here as I switch colors. No shifting anything over. And now another switch. Red goes under the brown here. Every stitch is being knitted exactly like it was in the previous row. So, one of my favorite new sports I've seen, starting in the last Olympics, by the way, is slope style. That's one of the most thrilling I can imagine for the athletes. It's one of the most thrilling things that they would do. It looks very dangerous too, but of course they have a lot of practice. Whatever you see the athletes do on the screen in their finals, I'm sure they've practiced it off the screen a zillion times beforehand, so it's a routine to them. The only thing that makes it not be perfect and what causes them to mess up so many times is that they're anxious because they're doing it when it really counts. And likewise, all the knitting you see me doing on this show, I've done it so many times before, and since I'm doing it for an international audience, this is when it really counts. As for the knitting Olympics that I'm in, it's not like a very official thing. This is more like something just for fun, so there are no medals awarded. It's not like the only prize is if you complete your project within the 2 weeks allocated for this. You'll get a certificate, but it's not going to be like gold, silver, bronze, or anything like that. No one's going to be ranked above another. It's either finished or did not finish, and it's just for fun. So here's the purl row, so you can see the front of it as it's being created. So once again, I'm going to purl in red up to the brown, and every time I meet a new color, I'm going to switch at exactly that point. And then after that, there's going to be one more row. After this row, there will be one more row of 5 of these across and one more row of 3 of them across. And then after that, I'll do some other kind of sweet. I'll do 2 rows in red just to create some space between, and then I'll do something else. I'm thinking of doing chocolate eclairs, or maybe some croissants or something. I want to put some ice cream on this. If anyone asks me what I would do for a Klondike bar, I have the answer. I would knit one. Maybe I'll include some kind of ice cream sandwich or something like that. And once I get this done, I also plan to pose in some location. There are plenty of bakeries in town. I'm going to look for a bakery that has a display very much like this in the window. And that's where I'll take my picture with some... The front of it will have a cake. What I'm working on right now is the back of it, where you're seeing all these little things. The front of it is going to have like a big cake here with some like candles. It's going to be a birthday cake. And by doing that, I'll fulfill the wish that many of my fans have wanted me to do for a long time, which is to make a birthday sweater. Whether or not I wear it on my own birthday, that depends on the weather, because this is one for cooler weather. My birthday is in November, so the weather then can vary. I've had some birthdays that have been so warm that I've been able to wear shorts. And then I've had other birthdays that are so cold that I've had to wear mohair, since the weather varies so much around that time. So if it's one of my birthdays in which the weather is cooler, I can wear this on my birthday. And I can wear it to other people's birthdays too. So if I'm going to a birthday party or something, I can, if the weather is just right, I can wear this sweater then too. Because this is what I'm doing to fulfill the birthday sweater wish for other people. So this is the last row of 5 of these across. They'll look round enough. As you can see, every time here, the way I switch colors, for those of you who are just joining, is crossing, and the color that's going to do the next stitch goes under the color from the previous stitch. The crossing has the effect of holding things together so there's no space between the 2 different colors of the stitch. Knowing how to cross the yarns is the most important thing to do when you want to knit something with multiple yarns, with multiple colors. Once you can master that, you're ready to do as much intarsia as you want. The rest of it you learn along the way. Of course, the things I do are so complex that there's all kinds of additional problems that need to be solved, even when I do every individual sweater. Every sweater has a lot of experimentation involved in it. The birthday cake that I'm talking about putting in front, since it's going to be timeless, it's not going to have a particular number on it. I'll put several candles on it, however many there are room for, but it doesn't mean that's anyone's age, just because it's what fits. But it's going to be timeless, so it can be worn for a birthday of any age. So this is the last cookie on here, and then I just have one more row for the cookies, and then I'll do 2 more rows in solid red after that. And that'll probably be my show afterwards, because it's plenty of work for here. So Here I'm going to decrease the size of the cookies, and I'm going to show you how I do that as I do it. So now it'll be a pearl row, so you'll get to see the front side, and I'll explain for some of these cookies how I'm going to do the decrease, which you've probably seen before if you've watched my show before, but it's always good to show it again and again so you can learn it better. So here I'm going to take the brown yarn, cross it over the red, then I'm going to purl 3 stitches in brown, and then each one of these is going to be just 3 stitches wide instead of 5. Take the brown yarn, cross it over the next red, and then start purling in red. And I can actually cut off the brown at this point, but I'm going to wait until I get to the end of the row to do that, because I usually cut ahead of time if I'm really badly tangled, which I'm not at this point. This isn't so badly tangled that it's obstructing my ability to do any of this. So once again, take the brown yarn, cross it over the red, so the red doing the next stitch goes under, and purl it in red. Pull the brown tight, and then purl 3 stitches in brown, and then do the same with the red. The red goes under the brown, purl the next stitch in red, pull the brown tight, and then purl in red up until the next brown. So here's cookie number 3. Once again, brown goes over the red, pull it tight, 3 stitches in brown, and then red goes under the brown, and then after it's just one more cookie to do, and this row will be done. I'm going to take a break after this row of knitting to cut off all the yarns I won't need for now. So the brown goes over the red, pull it tight, 3 stitches in brown, and then finally, and this is the red I'll be using for all of the next 2 rows, so I'm going to go purl under here, and then I just do red till the end of the row, and I'm going to put a needle cap on here. I'll do the next 2 rows on the air, but before I end the show, I'm going to take a break to show you cutting off what I don't need. So I'm going to take the needle cap, put it on here. This will hold all the yarn on the needle securely. I'll even put this here. I don't really need to do that, but I will. Here, I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to identify what these yarns that I don't need. So this is where the next row will start with this yarn. So all the other yarns in this row I don't need anymore. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to leave about maybe 5 or 6 inches, or even a little more. Cut it off. Pull it out. This is where it comes from. I don't need that anymore. Put that aside. And then here's the next brown one. I'm going to cut that. Take that out. I will need it later in the sweater because I'm going to do a lot of other stuff in brown. Anything that's chocolate or close to it. Here's the next one. Cut this off. And then here's where it comes from. I'm going to roll that up. Don't need that anymore. Here's another one. I missed this one. You don't have to remove these in the exact order. It just matters that they get removed. Cut that here. And this comes from this, which we'll need a lot more of in the future, but just not the next 2 rows. I do need at least 3 of these. I have 3 of these skeins, and that's probably what I'll need for the whole sweater. Here's the next one. This is one that I cut a section of. So I do have like a couple, 2 to 3 feet of it left. And it'll come in handy later, so I am going to save it. And here's the next brown one. Cut that. And once again, I'm going to save it. I have about maybe 18 inches of that, and I'll save it. Here's another red. Cut that. And I have about a yard of that, so I'm going to save it. It'll come in handy some other time, I'm sure. That's what happened yesterday. I'll show the situation exactly when it did come in handy. So I'm going to snip that as well. And I guess I'm all done with the cutting. So to show how this can come in handy, each of these cupcakes I made with a white yarn here. But when I got to the candles here, these are the flames of the candles. I had some leftovers from each cupcake of this white yarn. And I used the glow-in-the-dark yarn here, but it's very thin. This is bulky yarn I'm doing the sweater with, but the glow-in-the-dark yarn I have is extremely thin. It's almost like something for size 5 needles. So I combined a strand of that with a strand of the leftovers of the white from each cupcake, and I had perfectly exactly enough. It worked out very well. So that's why it's always good to save these little bits of yarn. So now I'll do 2 more rows on the air. So this will just be mostly a straight knit, except I'm going to show you how I'll lock the brown and the other reds in place each time. There will be quite a lot of examples of that here because the previous row had 9 yarns in it. So I'll do it 8 times, that means. So here I'm going to take this brown, cross it over the red. This locks it in place a little more, just so it's a little more secure. Pull it tight. And then reach the next one, this red. So once again, it goes over here. Pull it tight. And I can even do some crossing over like this with the red, since it's the same yarn, the same color. I'll have to remember to do it in the next row as well because it's not enough stitches going across, but this will spare me having to nitpick it. I can just snip it off with scissors when the time comes. I go up the last red stitch with this. I have to remember when I do the next stitch to keep on doing that because it's only 8 stitches between. So now here the red goes over the brown, and now I'm going to take this red and do the same as I was doing before with each stitch. Cross it over like that. This will lock it in place even more. Normally when you nitpick, you go under the stitch 10 times. So if you could get at least 10 of these out of it, it'll be secure enough that you can just cut it off with scissors. So I'll have to do like a couple more on the next row. And then I'll be exactly at row 50 after this, which is the half point of the row. Because it's 100 rows vertical. This sweater is supposed to be 100 rows vertically on each side. So this is row 50. This is row 49 I'm on now, and next will be row 50. So I'll have done on the air half point. So here's finally the last cookie. We're not doing that with the cookie because there's only 3 stitches to go across, and the next row won't have any brown, so we'll have to just nitpick it like normal. And here's the final one. Here I just have to go to the end of this row with it. There's enough here. There's 13 stitches. That should be enough. This tail actually, it looks quite short, but it should make it. It's one thing you have to remember when using bulkier yarns is you need more of it to do a single stitch. So whereas you can get by with an inch a stitch or like worsted weight, you need sometimes almost as much as 2 inches for each stitch when you use bulky yarn. But bulky yarn has 2 advantages basically, which is one of them that it knits up very fast, and the other is that it can keep you warm in cold weather. It's not the most comfortable, I'll have to say. To wear it is not the most comfortable, but I don't mind wearing it on occasion. Especially when I need a sweater for something in a week or two. I've done it, even though it's not always congruous to the weather. Like my most famous recent example is when I made the Eclipse sweater last year. I had only 2 weeks to get the Eclipse sweater done, so I did it in this bulky acrylic yarn. Even though it was almost triple-digit weather the day of the eclipse, I tolerated it for a short time just so I could get my eclipse selfie. The eclipse sweater became my most popular post on my personal Facebook page ever, with over 2,000 likes on the day I got it done. And I think the popularity of the eclipse propelled it to that. So as I said, I just did it then. I'm taking the rest of these tails and crossing it over for several stitches. I just did it then, and I'm showing you how I'm doing it now, because the previous row only provided 8 stitches to do that with, so I'm doing several more as a precaution. But so these pieces of red, when I get around to nitpicking, I can just snip them off. They'll save me that step. And then finally, here's the last one of these reds. I'm going to do it like maybe 4 or 5 stitches, maybe a little more. After that, I can just purl to the end of the row, and that will be our show for today. So maybe a couple more stitches of it. And one more since I have the room for it. And now I'll just purl to the end of the row. So, because this was a bulky sweater and it's only 66 stitches across, I was able to show you an entire section of it, which is the cookies. And I think next I'll do either ice cream or chocolate eclairs or something like that. I'll see, whatever I'm in the mood for. No pun intended. So, I'll show you what the progress I've made. So now you see the cookies are completed. Just like I wanted, this one is darker than some of the others. Oh, it looks like a dark chocolate cookie. Thank you everyone for joining. Afterwards, I'll answer some of your questions and comments. And I hope to be with you next week. Bye everyone.